many of you are bored to death here listening to all the shit that you've been hearing all morning? Come on, guys. Let's wake up now and let's have some fun. So, we are living in the most innovative decade in the human history. There's never been a better time to start a company. There's never been a better time. And here's why. It doesn't matter what industry you are in, that industry is going to be decimated. That industry is going to be completely disrupted. Because we are living in a world where it doesn't matter what is being done, the exponential technologies that are coming along will completely change the way the things are being done. The people in this room have an opportunity to change the trajectory of how humanity lives. So I'm here to tell you there's absolutely nothing that you can't achieve if you put your mind to it. And I'm going to step back for a second and give you my personal story, and then I'm going to come back and tell you why you are the right person in this room to go out and disrupt the industry that you want to. I grew up in India. We were very, very poor. We didn't have food to eat. I went to the United States with $5 in my pocket and didn't speak the language. God has been amazing to us. And the reason I'm here is to give you exactly that confidence that it doesn't matter where you come from. It doesn't matter what your background is. It doesn't matter how scared you are to think of that. You can't be an entrepreneur and you believe it can't be done. Let me tell you, I am the guy who grew up in India looking at the moon thinking that is the rich person's dream. And today, we are the only company in the world that has a permission to leave Earth orbit and land on the moon. How is that for a young person's dream? Now, all of you probably know about people in space. You think of Elon Musk, and you think of Richard Branson, and you think of our friend Jeff Bezos. All of them, in my humble opinion, underachievers and unambitious people. And here's why, Adeo. They're all stuck in the low Earth orbit. No one is leaving a low Earth orbit. A space station, you can touch it, it's that close. When they leave the Earth orbit and they go out and make it happen, they can come and talk to me how entrepreneurship actually works. Right. With that, what does it really take to be an entrepreneur? You heard from Adeo, amazing, right? What it takes to be an entrepreneur is something that you care about. So let me ask you, the only thing you need to ask when you start a company are two questions. What are you willing to die for and then live for it? What is it that you're willing to give your last drop of blood to make it happen and then live every minute of your life making it happen? And that's what entrepreneurs do. And the second thing you want to find out if you're really worried is what is my true passion? Think about if you had everything that you want in life. You have $1 billion. You have a beautiful family. You have everything that you always wanted. What is it that you would do at that time? And if you do that today, you will get everything that you always wanted in life. And that's how you become an entrepreneur. Let me tell you why I believe that everything is possible. The technologies that we have at our disposal today will disrupt every single industry. In fact, more than half of the Fortune 500 companies will not be around in 10 years. My prediction is, in fact, the technology is moving so fast that the current market leaders who are not even the Fortune 500 companies, before they even get a start, they will get disrupted. So here's what I'm trying to say. That if you start a company and you believe somebody else is already doing it and they are the market leader, all that means is they are so close to being obsolete, you can come back and essentially become the next market leader. The king is dying. You have a chance to become the king because the king is going to be dead. I predict the Uber is going to be dead before it goes IPO. And here's why. The biggest advantage Uber has is they have a driver network. And when you have a self-driving car, the manufacturer is the driver. Think about it. If Tesla can become an Uber overnight because everybody already has a Tesla app and the driver comes with the car itself, which is self-driving car. That means all they have to do is suddenly open up the network and they have the massive market already built in. Each technology can disrupt so many industries that we can't even somehow imagine. So let me give you a couple of examples of that. Just we talked about the self-driving car. It's easy to see how that impacts manufacturing of automobiles. Because once you have a self-driving car, it's easy to see that you don't have to really buy a car. It can be on demand, and someday you need a long distance, you need a Prius, and someday you really need a Ferrari because you want to impress the girl you're going out with, right? And you can have either one you want. Now imagine when these cars are on the road, they can talk to each other. That means they're driving much closer to each other. They don't have to build as many roads. What happens to the construction companies? Caterpillars of the world don't need to build as many roads. What happens to the parking lots because car doesn't need to be parked next to your office? Could those parking lots become the affordable housing? What happens when the cars are not getting into accidents? What happens to the automobile insurance? Right? And you can go on and on when you don't have to live next to the work because your car becomes your office. Holographically, you're connected. You are always there in the office. We don't have to live near the city anymore. What happens to the real estate? And that's a single technology. Imagine the confluence of many of these exponential technology. What happens to it? Let me give another example as an entrepreneur, how you think about the problem. Because the number one thing an entrepreneur needs to do is to understand what problem are we trying to solve. Don't get married to a solution. Think about the problem you're trying to solve. How you get the solution may change, but the problem stays the same. So for example, let's assume in this room, people say, I want to solve a fresh water problem because that's the biggest problem facing the humanity is the fresh water. The lack of fresh water is a problem I want to solve. And you come up with a solution. If you are a smart entrepreneur, you will think, why is there a shortage of fresh water? And you will realize that majority of the fresh water is used for agriculture. And all you have to do is change the way the agriculture is done, which is, can we do the aeroponic or aquaponic, or even have a lightly salted water with the modified seeds? That could fundamentally change the need for fresh water. And you feel really good that you found a solution. Until you start thinking that majority of agriculture is actually used to feed the cattle. And all you have to do now is to create the beef using a stem cell from a cow and just create the muscle tissues. And instead of growing the cattle, you can still have the beef exactly the way the nature does, simply growing the muscle tissue. So you can see how a fresh water problem simply became a synthetic biology problem. And if you don't do that, and if you solve the symptom of the problem, you'll always get disrupted by someone who solves the root cause of the problem. How many in this room actually want to start a billion-dollar company? Come on, guys. Raise their hands. Tell me how many. 5 people? God, unambitious people. Right. Let me tell you how easy it is to start a billion-dollar company. All you have to do is solve a $10 billion problem. That's it. Right. Solve a big problem. Or solve a problem that helps a billion people. If you can find a problem that helps a billion people, you will create a $10 billion company. That's it. It's that easy. What are these billion people problems? Every problem that you think of as a social problem is really a biggest opportunity for an entrepreneur. So if you think about what are the problems, there is no such thing as social entrepreneur. Social entrepreneur is the term that should not exist. In fact, if anyone calls someone a social entrepreneur, what they're really saying is, you are a shitty entrepreneur, but since you're doing something good, let's call you a social entrepreneur. Because if you're a good entrepreneur, you'll just call you an entrepreneur. Right? So, Because doing good and doing well are not mutually exclusive. In fact, the only way to do well is to do tremendous good. And the only way to do tremendous good is to create profitable companies. So repeat after me. Never be ashamed to say the company that you start is making money. Get out of the European mindset. Oh my God, if I'm making money, I'm committing sin. No, you're not committing sin. You're doing good in the world. The profit is the engine that drives good. If you are the richest person in the world, you're going to run out of money. You can only do small good before you run out of money. It doesn't matter you're Bill Gates. You run out of money if you don't do something that creates profit. If you want to help 1 billion people, the only way you can help 1 billion people is to go out and solve a problem with profit. Because profit allows you to scale. Profit allows you to go out and help 1 billion people. And that's how you do it. Dream so big that people think you're absolutely crazy. Really, when you tell someone what is it that you're trying to do, and if they don't think it's crazy, you're not thinking big enough. Unless, if you happen to be crazy, then all bets are off, right? Never, ever be afraid to fail. As an entrepreneur, you never fail. Your ideas may or may not work. And every idea that does not work is simply a stepping stone to a bigger idea and a bigger success. The only time in life you fail is when you give up. Everything else is just a pivot. Right? So don't ever give up. When you talk about doing crazy things, in fact, I would tell you it is easier to start a company with an audacious goal than to start something that's small and that solves a small problem. People think doing something small is easier. What I'm trying to tell you is doing something big and audacious is easier. And here's why. I have now started 7 companies, and there have never been 2 companies in the same industry. Never. Because I believe many of you are probably afraid. You say, I want to start a company in this industry, but I know nothing about it. The fact you know nothing about it is the biggest strength you have. Experts in that industry can only improve that industry incrementally by 10% or 15%. You will never be able to improve something 10 times or 100 times unless you are a non-expert. Don't think outside the box. Think in a completely different box. Take the skill from one industry and apply that to totally different industry. When I started Moon Express, I have no idea about space. In fact, the first question I asked was, how do you go to some place where it keeps moving? Every time you look at the thing, it moves. How do you go there? Right? I started a company in healthcare. Now imagine, what do I know about healthcare? Just as much as I know about space. Now imagine, how do I start? I set out a simple, audacious goal. Imagine living in a world where illness is a matter of choice, not a matter of bad luck. Think about that. What if no one ever has to be sick unless they made a decision to be sick? Because no diseases should ever happen. The chronic illnesses, which is what we all suffer from, heart disease, diabetes, Alzheimer's, the Parkinson's, autoimmune disease, obesity, every one of these diseases are simply the inflammation diseases. None of them should happen. Unlike infections, chronic diseases don't happen overnight. They happen over time. It is because our body is constantly fighting the things we're doing to our body. And here's what I learned about it. When I set out that audacious goal, I didn't know how I'm going to achieve that. And amazing things happen. When I said, I'm going to make the illness optional, the best people around the world came and says, I want to join and make that dream happen. And I'm not kidding you. The head of the Watson Research calls me and says, I've worked there for 20 years. This is the goal I want to work on. And he quit his $1 million a year job to work for 100K. Because that is the dream he wanted to be part of. A woman who was working for Craig Venter, who was working on human longevity, says, I don't know what Craig is doing, but I love what you're trying to do. I want to be part of that. You're able to attract the best talent from around the world to make that happen. A guy who knew nothing about it. We launched the company in a month. In the first month, the first week we launched, we had over $1 million in revenue. Think about it. In 6 months later, we launched a company. So I'm going to tell you how we did it, and I'm going to tell you how you can do it. It's interesting is, we all, when we start a company, we tend to develop all the technology and everything ourselves. What I realized was, our taxpayers, as a taxpayer, we're spending all these taxes, and the government is spending the money in the US in defense, in national labs, in national security, in the universities, and all these amazing things were sitting there. I was at NASA, and then I was visiting Los Alamos National Lab. You know what Los Alamos is famous for? Anybody here? Atomic bomb. It's called Manhattan Project. Wasn't done in Manhattan. It was done in Los Alamos. These guys know how to kill people. These guys really know. They were working on the next set of problems. What would that be? Biological things, right? And it occurred to them, what if a bad actor got hold of something biological? How would we know what made us sick? So they spent a couple of $billion of our money and 10 years developing a technology to find out what's making us sick. When I saw that, I said, gee, if we know what's making us sick, we can take that and keep people healthy. So we licensed the technology and have a worldwide exclusive license, and we launched the company. It was that easy. And I said, this is what we're going to do, keep people healthy. We got the best and the brightest. Now, in 6 months, I have 30 people, and the company is ready to go. Didn't take a rocket scientist to do that. In fact, I wasn't a rocket scientist to do the space either. Right? What I'm trying to say is, it's amazing how easy it is to launch a company when you go out and try to solve those big problems. The thing that I'm going to give you a couple of tips here that I still have 3 minutes left about human body and the mind and the parenting and things like that, just to give you some idea, a thought process of problems you can solve. What I did not realize as myself was, I thought what makes us is our genetics. Our DNA makes us who we are. I did not realize less than 1% of the genes in our body come from our DNA. Less than 1%. 99% of the genes that are expressed in our body come from the microorganisms that live in our gut. And everything, when you talk about depression, 70% of serotonin is produced in your gut, not in your brain. Parkinson's disease doesn't start in your brain, it starts in your gut. Alzheimer's doesn't start in the brain, it starts in your gut. You look at autism, you look at heart disease, you look at cancer. Everything starts with these microorganisms because 99% of the genes are expressed by them. In fact, our DNA simply tells you what is possible. What controls what is going to happen is the epigenetics, which these guys control. They are the puppet master. So you may be really proud of who you are. You're nothing but a beautiful container for these parasites, or symbiotic parasites, or these microorganisms, right? That's who we are, right? So all I want you to do, if you believe you can do something, go out and make it happen, right? So I'm going to give you a couple of other tips here as an entrepreneur that I have learned. One of them is, people focus so much on telling people what they do, and every word, they got this wordsmith, they really want to make the presentation perfect. I can tell you something that really is the key to success. People will forget what you tell them, but they will never forget how you made them feel. What they remember is how you made them feel. How you made them feel becomes your business card that they carry with them. Don't focus on what you say. Focus on how they are feeling about it. If they leave after meeting you saying, holy cow, the guy is going to go make it happen. And that's why they invest in you, not because something you told them. People want to be part of the success. Let me tell you something about investors that I learned. Investors invest for 3 reasons. Greed, they really want to make a lot of money. But here's the thing that really they hate the most. The fear of missing out. If you tell them, here's what I tell them every time I start a company. Every one of you have a chance to watch the history being made. There are very few times in your life you get a chance to make the history with an entrepreneur. Now is your chance. You don't want to be that poster child that someone says, I went to him and told him what I was going to do, and he said no. And here's that idiot who said no. Right? You don't want to be that idiot, right? And that's how they invest in you. Right? Is that they have a fear of missing out, and you let them know this train is leaving the station. With or without you, this is going to get done. And the minute they know you're going to get the shit done, they want to be part of that. So I'm going to ask you one last question. How many of you in this room feel they can be an entrepreneur? If you can, just stand up. Come on, guys. Who wants to be an entrepreneur and make it happen? And all you guys who are sitting down, I know in your heart, you know you can be an entrepreneur. Ma'am, you can. Get up and tell me you can be an entrepreneur. I guess not. Even I lose some. Thank you very much.